Hey, I'm Antonio, and I am in a chair that can spin. And the reason I'm in a spinny chair is because today I'm going to talk to you about hit show Creature Commandos and the ways in which it succeeds into breathing life into old and forgotten characters. I'm going to go ahead and give you all a fair warning. This is an adult animated show, so it's going to have gore and, of course, it's going to cover some sexual topics. I myself will not be discussing any sexual topics, but there will be some gore ahead as I show clips of the show itself over my insane ramblings. There's also going to be some minor backstory type spoilers ahead, so I recommend watching the show before watching this video. Creature Commandos is a show that released its first 2 episodes on December 5th of 2024. And the other 5 episodes of Season 1 released every week up until January 9th of this year. It's a black comedy that uses older DC characters and breathes new life into them thanks to creator and writer James Gunn. The show follows a team built by Amanda Waller, who works for the fictional government organization Argus. Following the events of Suicide Squad, she is no longer allowed to use superpowered human prisoners to carry out secret government missions. So what does she do to get around this? Well, she does the only rational thing and decides to form a team made up of a reanimated corpse, some sort of almost sentient robot, an inverse mermaid, some kind of skeleton man a la Sans Undertale, and, of course, to round off the team, somebody's fursona. Their mission is to get to the country of Pokolistan and protect the princess from the forces of the witch Circe and her army full of dude bros. And what does Amanda Waller dub this team? That's right, Task Force M. What, did you think it'd be called the Creature Commandos? You can't have that in 2025. You can't have the title card being mentioned in the first episode unless your hit series Invincible. Creature Commandos as an idea dates back to the 1980s when war comics were very popular. It was set in World War II and followed a team made up of iconic horror characters and monsters, as well as having a human team leader. The characters in the show themselves, though, greatly vary in age, with G.I. Robot being the oldest from some 1961 war comics, Dr. Phosphorus being next oldest from a 1977 Batman comic, the Weasel being a Firestorm villain in 1985, the Bride being introduced in 2006, and Nina Mazursky in a 2011 issue of a Frankenstein comic. But the one thing these characters all had in common before this show was their status as forgotten characters. And what James Gunn does so masterfully is how he reinvents these characters and brings them back into the public eye. Originally, the Weasel was a peer of Firestorm's who sought revenge after being called a weasel, and he took revenge by becoming a serial killer and dressing up as a savage beast. However, James Gunn's Weasel is completely unrecognizable compared to the old Firestorm villain. He is a flesh and blood anthropomorphic weasel dog type creature. He was befriended by a group of young kids, and due to a series of incredibly unlucky events out of his control, all of the kids end up dying in a collapsing school, with the Weasel being blamed. And that turns this cold-blooded serial killer into a deeply sympathetic figure. My personal favorite character in the show would have to be Dr. Phosphorus, the skeleton man. So his first version was Alexander Sartorius, a wealthy industrialist trying to rub elbows with the Fat Cats, the corrupt businessmen of Gotham, forced to take care of an offshore nuclear power plant, and Alexander himself was promptly showered in radiation due to a small nuclear meltdown. His skin then became translucent, turning him into a skeleton of a man with a lethal touch. The transformation turned him insane and angry, and he took revenge on those that he blamed for his current situation. His next pseudo-iteration was Blight, a character from Batman the Animated Series, which I'll be referring to as BTAS. Derek Powers was a similarly power-hungry businessman who was exposed to an illegal bioweapon that he helped to develop. Blight glowed green with charred black bones, which heavily affected Dr. Phosphorus's future appearances both in comics and elsewhere. And this is all despite the fact that Blight's creators, Bruce Timm and Glenn Murakami, the creators of BTAS, had no intention of making him similar to Dr. Phosphorus, and had genuinely thought that they had come up with an entirely original character. In Creature Commandos, he is once again Alexander Sartorius, but instead of being a businessman, he is a family man. He has a loving wife and a son who dotes on him. He performs cancer research, and he was working on finding a cure via nuclear fusion. However, to do so, he needed to accrue funding, and was forced to make a deal with corrupt businessman Rupert Thorne, who was going to send the research to the fascist leaders of a foreign country. His wife, who came from a similarly oppressive country, naturally opposed this, so his workaround was to create fake results to send to Thorne's fascist friends. Unfortunately, Thorne found out, and he murders Sartorius' entire family and frames him for the crime in an incredibly powerful and deeply upsetting scene. He then shoves Sartorius in a van, steals his research, and forces him into the nuclear fusion machine to kill him. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on the way you look at it, it doesn't kill him. It turns him into Dr. Phosphorus. He quickly and brutally takes revenge on Thorne and his men by murdering his men, then Thorne's entire family, and melting every obstacle in his path. Phosphorus then replaces Thorne, takes over his crime ring, and uses his powers to become the new kingpin of Gotham. He fills the void left empty by the death of his family with crime, violence, and opulence, after which he is defeated by Batman and promptly arrested. Phosphorus is then deemed non-human and sent to Belle Reve prison. During his mission in Pakistan, the team is forced to split up, and he takes refuge in a home where he is found by a young girl. And so, his paternal instincts kick in, and he takes care of this young girl, feeding her and playing with her, something he hasn't done since his son's death. He is a deeply broken man, at one moment tender, and at the very next, devastatingly melting people's faces off. In summary, James Gunn's new show, Creature Commandos, elegantly breathes life into older, forgotten characters by reimagining them and giving them complex motivation and backstories. And maybe, someday, the forgotten characters of today will become the heavy hitters of tomorrow.